Hello and welcome back to the Nasty Metal Production YouTube, and welcome to another Friday review. Today I am reviewing the third full-length album from still this pretty recent Chilean heavy metal band, Lucifer's Hammer, and the album here in question is The Trip, which is the first official debut album basically to be released both on CD and record through High Roller Records on June 23rd of this year. So let's definitely get into basically again Lucifer's Hammer. So again, they are based out of Santiago, Chile. They were formed all the way back in 2012, and they had released their debut demo in 2013, which was looking on Metal Archives here, Night Sacrifice demo. But then they released their debut full-length album through, of course, both independently and then officially on CD and other physical formats on Shadow Kingdom Records that same year. And that same year was actually the year where I actually reviewed their debut album. But since then, I've obviously did not really keep up much with this band. So even though I kind of knew what they were releasing, but I just didn't really check anything else afterwards. But I'm going to definitely run through these anyways, as quickly as possible. Again, the following year, they released basically their debut EP, Victory Is Mine, in 2017. Because again, the first full-length and the first EP. Just to kind of clarify that more so. Still, it was their final release on Shadow Kingdom before obviously moving on to their second full-length album in 2018 titled Time Is Death, which was their first official release to be released on Stormspell, and I think it was kind of their final anyways with Stormspell before obviously getting a official record deal with High Roller Records, who had at least released the previous album Time Is Death on record. But here we are here in 2021 with, of course, their third full-length album, The Trip. So without further ado, let me get into my thoughts on The Trip here. So let's definitely get into it. So before I really get into any of my actual thoughts on this album, you know what I have to do. I have to do a track listing rundown so I can tell you folks what are the songs on this album, how many songs are on this album, and what is the time length for this album. Since we have at least about 7 songs here, it all clocks in at 31 minutes and 35 seconds. So these 7 songs are The Oppression, The Forest of Tartak, I pretty much pronounced that correctly, Land of Fire, All Stories Come to an End, Illusion, The Winds of Destiny, and then finally ending with I Believe in You. So there's your 7 songs. So again, just to kind of do a little sort of at least kind of travel back a little bit here, just to kind of at least to make things more at least sensible, okay? Since obviously I've never really kept up with anything past their debut album, I'm just gonna at least go back to that, just to my just my original thoughts I had on their debut, because of that was again I remember when I had reviewed Beyond the Omens in 2016, and for a debut album, and again, my first taste of at least Lucifer's Hammer, I thought there was definitely plenty of things I actually appreciated on that album, even though I didn't think it was really a mind-blowing album. But I thought there was a lot of things I can appreciate. Again, them being obviously a new wave or traditional heavy metal band, they obviously were trying to really go for that more, you know, a very retro, almost throwback 80s sound, and I think they did a very good job on really kind of recapturing that sound in terms of the production, the recording, and so forth. And it had a lot of those qualities of a very almost unearthed, almost forgotten 80s heavy metal album that you could have found on, let's say, Metal Blade Records, or either at times maybe even Black Dragon Records back in the day, again for a really obscure reference. So it really had those kind of qualities. Again, very American sounding at times, very almost similar to maybe early Fate's Warning, for an example, or even early Queensryche in some cases. But it had those Iron Maiden and new wave or British heavy metal influences. But again, I appreciated those aspects of that album. But to be quite honest, I kind of did feel that it was just all right, but it didn't completely blow my mind. So that's kind of why to my mind, I just didn't feel like keeping up really just more and more with their stuff, okay? So I'm just being really honest with you for this review. So Obviously, I knew that they were releasing stuff afterwards, again, like the Victory Is Mine EP, and of course, In Time Is Death, their second full-length album. I knew that they were still releasing albums, but to be quite honest, after hearing Beyond the Omens, I don't know if they were, since again, it really felt like an album that almost that could have been one and done almost, because it's like, how could you at least expand on that? Well, obviously you can tell that I'm building up to at least suspense here, so let's get into it. Obviously you can tell that after listening to the third full-length album here, those opinions are completely wrong now. I basically take back whatever initial original opinions I had about Beyond the Omens. Well, they've been wiped away just from upon first listening of The Trip, of course, with the opening track, The Oppression. I mean, they still are keeping up with the whole overall idea and the theme, just the overall aspects that they had on the first album. Again, just keeping the sort of the 80s almost throwback production and recording, but they really were able, in terms of what they were able to really fix along with this album and really improve on, is the songwriting and the overall song structuring and just the overall atmosphere at times as well. Just the overall writing, I think, has really matured more so. They really become a lot more tighter, and some songs I think are a lot more hookier and more catchier and actually have more bite compared to the first album. Everything's really matured, which really I think I'm starting to kick myself for not really soldiering on and trying to really give these guys more chances afterwards. Even though I'm not trying to make out that their debut album was a bad album, it's just that I thought it was just okay at best. But this album right here, again, it begins with The Oppression. What a fucking riff. Again, it's got that real classic, almost anthemic 80s metal feel, but by the time after, it kind of has an almost marching feel when it gets into the actual sort of almost fast-paced riffing. This is where the song just takes off and really goes into the great directions. Goes right into something I feel is very memorable. And from there on, again, from the vocal department, which everything, it fits along. Very melodic at times, but it works. Again, I guess kind of quirkiness, again, you're not going to expect a Ronnie James Dio or even a Rob Halford or a Bruce Dickinson, or at times maybe a John Arch, for at least Fate's Warning fans. But he at least does have, he's a lot more improved in a lot of his vocal melodies and so on, and everything just, it actually fits along, gives it a more almost majestic and haunting feel to the overall, this overall sound and atmosphere, and it just begins there. And again, it seeps right in through, of course, the very next couple of songs, like The Forest of Tartak and then Land of Fire, which Land of Fire is definitely a great interpretation, just a great sort of, just a good attack on the anthemic metal track from the 1980s. This is another great track off this album. But there's other great ones too, like Illusion, which does have that Iron Maiden influence going on here, but it flows through well, and it builds up with those twin guitar attack and so on, just the overall melodies. And then before kicking into the actual song, it's just, my God, it's high gear into just, it's overdriven. Fucking great stuff. And of course then into the Winds of Destiny. There's really even the songs that I didn't really write down as highlights, again, like All Stories Come to an End and I Believe in You, still have all great qualities to them that I think are very enjoyable. And again, I just what is mesmerizing is that the maturity and the overall them just really improving on a lot of the songwriting and the overall compositions, and just everything is just improved from the album. And again, everything just has a memorable riff going on here. There's a lot of great hooks here, great vocal melodies. Everything's just improved, and again, but still not completely removing anything that at least the debut album they were trying to really build with, basically, along with the, just the overall, the production, the recording. But again, they keep all of that. But what is the one thing that just really strikes me is the overall writing. It's, again, everything is, it's like third album in. Usually that is always going to be the more mature effort from the band, is going to be that third album. And so they definitely are the examples of where the third album here is basically the more mature and definitely more realized album. And I think that they did a great job in really just really expanding on whatever they were trying to do basically with their first album. I think it's a pretty good fucking winner here. Really good album. So I can't really say anything else about this album. Again, there's just great riffs, great guitar soloing, just overall just great writing. Everything just has a very great, cool, and again, very almost cold, like almost atmosphere, but it works. And I think it gives the album its overall character and just overall personality, and it's a great modern heavy metal album. So there we go. There's my actual thoughts on, or just honest thoughts on The Trip, the third album here from Lucifer's Hammer. So as far as my rating, I am giving it a 9.50 out of 10, because since I always have to write down your ratings, so at least so you don't have to keep remembering it, because it always will give you a headache. So always write the shit down. And again, just to run off through again the highlights: the Oppression, the Forest of Tartak, Land of Fire, Illusion, and the Winds of Destiny. Those are all fucking highlights. Again, this is just a solid album nonetheless, though. There's just other great songs on here. So if this does sound like an album that you really want to check out, and if you've never heard any of this, or if you have heard any of their stuff, you always can leave your, your comments and overall opinions in the comment section below, whether they be honest or, again, I guess the best way I forgot to say, or I was trying to say there, is obviously whether they be positive or negative. But if you haven't really listened to this album, I'm going to obviously recommend this album to you, and I'll definitely tell you where you can find this album to either listen to or buy physically, just so you can add it to your collection. Again, I'll leave you a link to the Bandcamp page where you can buy it digitally, but just listen to it from start to finish. Again, if it might, or just sample it if it might be something that you really would like. But if you really like it and you want to buy it, you will also find in the description box is a link to High Roller Records for their listing, whether it be on vinyl, on a record. Obviously, vinyl is probably a modern day stupid term to use anyways. But record, you can buy it on that or on CD. So there we go. I hope all of you enjoyed. This is Heavy Thrash. I sing I'm out, and I'll see you all later. Take care, everyone.